Welcome to the Building Design Primetime Podcast, focused on providing valuable information for anyone looking to undertake a new build or extension project. We'll share our tips, tricks and stories from a building designer's perspective.
Welcome to the Building Design Primetime Podcast. I'm your host, Amelia, and once again we're joined by Frank Geskus.
Hey, Amelia.
Hey, how's it going?
End of the week.
End of the week.
How do you reckon it's going? I'm tired.
That's all right. We've got another exciting episode to talk about.
True. We're going to talk about what are the things to consider when you're building near the coast. In Tasmania, we're a lovely little island. We're pretty big. Not compared to the mainland, as we call it, the big island. But we've got so many amazing places around Tasmania for recreational, beach, just beautiful views all the way around. And some are harsher than others with their environment, like the west coast of Tasmania, pretty brutal. But I thought we'd talk about things you've got to consider. Everyone dreams of having a holiday home, or as we like to affectionately call them, the shack, just out on the coast looking over the breaking surf.
And I mean, it is amazing. Who wouldn't want a property like that?
Oh, totally. And some people are very fortunate to have that, or be able to, or actually move there, retire. Yeah, there's plenty of people that move to the coast. I've seen plenty of mainlanders, you people from the big island, come over, fall in love with the place, and they buy these amazing houses on the coast.
Oh, yeah. But there are some pitfalls that people need to consider, because there can be additional costs.
If you're building from scratch, but also if you're buying one. Yeah, comes down to what we call the exposure classification.
What does that mean?
So you're exposed to the corrosive environment. So just think beach, salt, breaking water, big mist. Where does the mist that lands on the building and can cause mayhem with your building?
I guess you've got to think moisture in general is pretty bad.
Yeah. It is to a point, but most houses can handle that. But when you add a little bit of salt to that,
even worse.
It takes it to the next level.
Yeah.
I've seen some amazing damage to houses. And we're very fortunate in Tasmania, and to be fair, all around Australia, there are some amazing places that are allowed to build. Now, to be fair, in today's legalistic way of how we do things, you can't build in a lot of these places anymore. They just will not let you.
Because of that reason? Because of the corrosive environment?
No, you've got to protect the cute furry animals and plant life and all that. Because there's people with farms. Years gone by, they could build humpies and shacks and holiday homes within reason, because there wasn't a huge amount of rules. And I'll use the example in Tasmania, we have the highlands, we call it, and that's up in our lakes with our famous trout fishing. And we call most of the shacks up there humpies, because they're just bits of buildings that have been put together. No building approvals, no nothing, but it's just how it was done. And they've been there for a long, long time. They have different environment to deal with. They're climate zone class 8, so they're highlands, so they have to deal with different things, but they're up against the water, but they're on a lake, so they don't have salt, fresh water, different environment. But then you've got stuff on the coast where people have gone and built stuff, and the old fibro house, fibro cement sheet house, was pretty common, and there's still lots of them out there. Now we're building mega mansions out on the coast to look at the view, and some people live there and travel into the cities, and that's their choice. Good on them if they want to do that. But you have to take a lot into consideration. When you have breaking surf, it has a mist, and generally you'll have periods of high winds coming straight off the sea. They're going to blow it straight onto your house. And anything that is not protected, or the metal isn't, non-corrosive, it'll destroy the house.
Wow. So how do you work around that? Are there special materials that you have to use, or how does it work?
Well, if you're doing a new house now, you've got to work out the classifications. That's where you start. So under the building code, we look at what is a very high exposure classification, and that could be in the vicinity of up to 300 metres from the breaking surf. And that has a very huge impact on your house, because you're always going to have strong winds at times, salt, mist, whatever, all landing on the house. So then it's heavily exposed to corrosion but also wind blowing into crevices into the house as well. So the design has to take that into effect, and you don't want water blowing in through little cracks and stuff through your house. So then you've got to put in metal flashings, but the metal flashings can't be normal flashings.
You have to get special ones.
Yeah, there's a product we use which is called Ultra. So everyone's heard of Colour Bond, but this is Ultra, and it's designed for that, but it's not designed to get really close because it can't handle getting really close to the breaking surf. So then you look at other options: aluminium, stainless steel. So the cost goes up. Your fixtures, screws, you're going to have to consider putting stainless steel screws in. If you've got brickwork, there are brick ties that hold it to the frame. They have to be stainless. All your fixings have to be stainless. Galvanise, doesn't always work, depending on the level of galvanising. If you've got a nice deck outside the house and there's a steel frame, it's got to be coated. And funnily enough, hot dip galvanising sometimes doesn't cut the mustard, contrary to belief. So I've seen galvanised steel not handle over a long time. So then we look at 2-pack epoxies that are designed for that exposure. Like we work with Dulux products for those high exposure houses. And that includes not just the steel that's on the outside, like for a deck or on the house, but it's inside the house as well. Because the salt gets inside the house. So
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it does. It gets in everywhere. So then all the steel that's inside that you build, you may need that to hold the house together. So that's got to be coated correctly. And when I mean coated, not when it's put in place, when it's put together, it's all bolted, so it's well coated, well protected. And I've seen plenty of houses where it hasn't been. And then how do you fix it? It's really expensive and it's really hard.
So what sort of experience do you have when you come across these sort of houses? Have you seen some pretty damaged properties because of the corrosive environment?
Yes. I'll use an example. Just up from Launceston, you go up the Tamar River and you go to a place called Low Head, and Greens Beach is over the water there too, as well. But Low Head is really exposed, and I've seen some houses up there, got all this wind and rain and obviously sand mixed up there, and it's like parts of it was sandblasted, damaged the exterior
just
cladding.
Eating it away.
Wow. I've seen, you've got beautiful door handles and stuff, got nice coatings on them. They've all been eaten away. Down lights, another light fixture, powder coating, stripped away. It's absolutely brutal, the environment that these houses are in.
It makes you wonder how those little fibro shacks have survived for so long.
They were very simple.
True, they were.
And the nails weren't like the nails we do now. They were like the big spikes, you know. But they are what they are because they're not built great, but also they're very, very basic. So there's not a lot to go wrong.
True.
It's not as if they've got any downlights in them.
No, that's right.
Had the old Bakelite stuff in there, which is fine. So now you see a lot of houses being built on the coast, and they're beautiful. And you go anywhere in Australia, and the maintenance on them is huge. But they've got to be designed. Even the concrete, you can't just use the same technique of concrete as you're living in the city where you're 50 kilometres away and you're pretty safe from that type of environment. The concrete has to be a higher grade strength, and the steel have to have more cover to the steel, so it's better protected. So there's all these types of things. The nails they use, well, you've got to think about that. The holding down bolts, at the bottom plate, how they fix to the concrete. You're not going to use mild steel, you're going to use stainless. And that's the cost goes up.
Wow.
And even the window powder coating, it's hard work for the windows. They cop it really bad.
They would, yeah.
And think of the rubbers around there too, And you pay more for that to make sure it lasts, but they won't guarantee it. And we've had that with the roofs too, where we've specified Ultra and they go, well, it costs a fortune, but they still can't guarantee it past their normal warranty. So all those things have to be considered. Sometimes the natural materials are better. Yeah, using timber, recoating it. Some of the cement sheets are quite good. You've got to, work with your design architect and look at specific products. We've just done one recently. We've gone a CLT, cross-laminated timber, and we've put specific colour bond sheeting over it and all stainless fixings, but it's going to be in a pretty harsh environment.
Wow.
Yeah, all these things have to be considered. You can't just think it's going to cost you the same as in the city as it does out near the coast.
Does it also depend on where on a block you can put the house?
Position it.
The position, yeah. I imagine that with the distance, is there a minimum distance or how does it work?
Yeah, look, it's based on the products and the suppliers. A lot of them saying no closer than 300 metres.
Okay.
I won't guarantee it. But that varies from every product. And you've got to, look around, research it. Is that suitable or not? I want a certain look. And then also, I'm willing to sacrifice. I want that look. I'm going to put that cladding on. It will, in 20, 30 years' time, it's no good. Then I accept that. As a designer, you're trying to get a look and meet the client's brief, and you've got to consider those things in helping them choose the right cladding for that and advise them of that. And it's got to be quite buildable as well. So for the builder to be able to put together, the builder has to be switched on how to put this stuff together as well. Using the right fixtures. You can buy any screws you like from the hardware store, but you've got to be quite specific on these. There's no shortcuts.
Yeah, so you're probably looking at a pretty experienced builder because it is a little bit specialised, isn't it?
Very much so. But it's also not to be confused. We're fortunate in Tasmania, we've got lots of big rivers that come from the sea and then come into fresh water. Launceston's on the Tamar, Hobart's on the Derwent, Devonport, Ulverston, all these places got reasonable rivers on them that they can build on. And then Launceston, the Tamar, is like an estuary. So you don't have that because the water becomes salt, brackish, and then you've got fresh at the other end. The two rivers come in and flush it out. So you don't have that salt. But it's interesting when you go to the other end, where Georgetown up the road, we're doing some work on an industrial site up there, and that's 700 metres away from the water. Yet that has suffered badly from corrosion.
Really?
Yeah, and you wouldn't think so. There's not a huge amount of breaking surf, but we were surprised. But this is a really interesting shed because it was mainly clad in aluminium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the main shed was, but then all the additions were out of mild steel, like Colorbond, and they haven't fared too well.
Really?
Yeah,
wow,
it was
that's
really
surprising.
bizarre thing. Yeah. So the original designers who built this building knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that's good. Makes a difference.
Yeah, the other thing too, say if you put a box gutter in there and you're relatively close to potential moisture and corrosion, stainless steel gutters every day of the week.
Yeah.
Doesn't cause you a problem.
You love your box gutters.
No, I don't.
I just thought I'd bring that
Throw
up.
that in, yes. Yes, not a fan. Not a fan. They cause, because I'm a practical guy, they cause more problems potentially down the track.
Especially with maintenance and...
Oh, no one maintains them. Who wants to go up and root and clean the leaves out of a box gutter?
True.
I don't know. I'm not that keen. So these are things you've got to really consider. Your deck. You put natural timbers on your deck. On a harsh environment like that, the coatings are going to be struggling to deal with it. Mm-hmm. The people put up sheds for their boats, Colorbond sheds.
Yes.
And if they don't choose the right Colorbond, what's going to happen? It's going to rust. And all the steel, the inside, rusts.
Yeah.
You got rust stains on the concrete and all that. So there's plenty of examples of that around Tasmania, but on the river being an estuary, you don't get that exposure. So Windermere, Rosevears, just up from Launceston, they don't have that kind of problem. Even on the Derwent in Hobart, it's not too bad until you get closer, to southern where it meets
the beach.
Yeah, it goes down further. Yeah. So it's understanding where you're going to have breaking surf, so water splashing up against the edge of the river as such. Yeah. So those things you've got to be really conscious of, plus the high winds.
Yeah, that's a really good point and probably something that not everyone thinks about either.
No, it gets windy, whether you like it or not. It comes a rush across the water and belts you, absolutely belts it. That exposure, there's nothing as cool as a wintry day in Tassie, and we get a few of those.
Only a few.
And you're you're looking over the beach, tucked up nice and warm inside your house, the weather's a bit how you're going, and you've got this magnificent view. Mm-hmm. Even if it's raining and whatnot, or thunderstorms in the distance, it is awesome.
It is pretty cool.
Yes. So when the sea mist comes in, you can't see a thing.
Yes.
But we're very fortunate here. There's plenty of places. A lot of people outside of Tasmania have discovered this as well and moving down here and buying a holiday home. Billong Bay, Bay of Fires, it's pretty famous.
Oh, yeah.
Coles Bays, Bicheno, St Helens, Stiglitz, and that's just on the east coast.
Yeah, and we've got a lot more than that.
You go down Hobart, Primrose and all the way around there, it's magnificent.
Even Orford and down there.
Tribunna.
Yep.
Then you go down on the other side, Kingston Beach, Snug, you go all the way down there.
7 Mile Beach.
Yep, oh, magnificent.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of choice, isn't it?
Heaps of choice.
But high maintenance.
Yeah, so what are some of the considerations that, for anyone either looking to buy an established beach house or shack or retire down here or whatever the go might be, if it's new or established, what do you look out for?
Well, if it's established, it should show signs of wear and tear, like any house does. But what you're looking for is potential corrosion. Now, the problem is you can't see in behind the walls. You can't necessarily in the roof. You can't see it in certain places. Hopefully it's been well maintained, because if it's not been maintained, you'll be able to see it pretty clearly. But to be fair, if you're not in the game looking at this stuff, you wouldn't know. And this is where I believe good, reputable building assessors will be able to, pre-purchase assessments, will be able to go through this in detail and point out things. Under the floor, if it's timber floor, how's that all looking? We've had Wayne on the show, we've spoken about that, but you find a reputable assessor who can do this, they were going to save you thousands of a lot of heartache. And I'd always do it via referral, multiple referrals for an individual or a business. The reason I say that, don't ever listen to one person's opinion on this. It's an unregulated part of the industry, and I think it should be regulated, and making sure they run insurance. And this is if you're buying near new as well, because the beauty of near new, you could ask permission from the owner, says, I want to look at all the building drawings, plumbing drawings and all that, and look at all the inspections. And then you get someone in who's experienced, could be designer, architect, building surveyor, and says, have they done this correctly to protect for corrosion and high winds? There's a case that was on ABC where it was down at Primrose Sands. Someone built a house and something went wrong. There's a whole conflicting information, but the bottom line is the owner ended up taking over from the builder and went to his own thing, and everyone's blaming everyone. But the bottom line is this thing had a lot of steel in it. It was shown on the photos that we saw in the news. There was not one lick of paint on it. Didn't even have a primer on it. It was pure steel. And it was definitely within 300 metres of breaking surface.
So that's a big no-no?
Of course, you've got to coat your steel, you've got to protect it. It's like aluminium, you've still got to protect it. You've got to maintain it. Even with stainless, you've got to wash it off. Look at guys with boats. They're always washing their boats when they come out of the water. So you've got to look at the same as your house. So there are people there still not in the know. If they don't do it properly, owner builders, sorry, no offence, I've been it myself, they don't necessarily know, and when the budget gets out of control, they take corners. I'm generalising here, but I have seen corners cut on owner-builder homes, and when it comes to when you're close to the coast, you do not want that, because you can't see if things have been painted properly, coated properly, protected properly, stainless fixings, all that type of stuff. So
would you recommend a higher contingency for people looking at these sort of environments?
Yeah. If you're building something, you are definitely going to need a higher amount of money, and look, at the end of the day, your budget's going to be considerably more. Has to be. There's no choice about that. So don't expect to build it for the same cost if you're building something in town. Forget about the land component, just talking pure building cost. And what the percentage might be, I can't tell you, because it depends where you sit on the site. And when I mean by site, I mean, I should say position to the breaking surf. Mm-hmm. But you build near fresh water and stuff, you're generally okay. If you're up the estuaries, plenty of other rivers around Tasmania. When you're inland on rivers, lakes and stuff, the exposure, you haven't quite got those considerations. You might have snow that you've got to deal with. But
snow, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, when you get up in the highlands, yeah. So I hope that helps a little bit, just making people aware of building near the coast or buying near the coast. And there's a lot of them around Tasmania.
Oh, there certainly are. Alrighty, any other take-home points? Do your research, as always.
It sounds like a scratch record, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's certainly part of that. And finding the professionals to help you with this, to make the right decision. If you're dropping $1 million and on a coastal house, you want to make sure that it's a good investment. It's a luxury item, unless you're going to make it your permanent home. But if it's a second home, a holiday home, it's an absolute luxury. But either way, it's still a big investment, and you don't ever want to lose on that.
100%. Alrighty, we might wrap it up there, folks. Thanks for listening to the Building Design Primetime Podcast.
Catch you later.
You're listening to the Building Design Primetime Podcast.